Over the decade before 2020, we just saw a continuous escalation in the volume and sophistication of cyber attacks. In the realm of nation state attacks, we saw those begin with espionage, the theft of data and information. That expanded to the theft of intellectual property and large data sets, and then ultimately graduated, as it were, to attacks that were intended to just cause damage and harm, like the 2017 attacks, the WannaCry and NotPetya attacks. But what we've continued to see is escalation both in the number of nation states engaging in these attacks and the frequency and volume and sophistication of the attacks. And we can't lose sight of cybercrime attacks, which continue to grow at incredible rates without any meaningful deterrence or reduction in the rate or sophistication of those attacks, which are taking billions of dollars out of the economy and harming consumers and enterprises. So what we've seen, though, from the pandemic, as was mentioned in the video, is we've seen this incredible transformation as people have moved home and yet continue to work or go to school or interact virtually. And that has greatly expanded the volume of activity on the internet in ways that all of the private sector scrambled to stay on top of and make sure that we could provide those services. But that also means more opportunity for those who wish to take advantage of the situation for cybercrime or other nefarious purposes. And we saw a couple of big trends. The first was we saw a significant increase in COVID-19 themed attacks. So the principal way in which adversaries will attack and try to get on your computer is through phishing. And the way that you phish is you provide a lure, some information in an email or in a communication that causes the recipient to click on a link and thereby infect their computer with the malware of the attacker. And we saw not an increase in the total number of attacks, but we saw a transformation in the lure that was being used from other social issues or other topics to COVID-19 themed topics. And there were big spikes in that effort that corresponded with the degree to which the pandemic was getting public attention. And the data there was really interesting. The other thing that we've seen, unfortunately, is we've seen a significant increase in attacks on healthcare providers. That's cyber criminals using ransomware to go after hospitals or other healthcare providers, as well as nation states who are attacking either to steal information about treatments or vaccines, or even possibly to disrupt the development of those treatments and vaccines. And we've seen all of that in the healthcare sector. Just recently, as some of you may have seen, there was an event a tragic event in Germany when a woman who was going to the hospital to get emergency care had to be turned away because the hospital was the victim of a ransomware attack that shut down all of their services. And she had to go to a different hospital, and unfortunately, she passed away. And that's really the first time that we've been able to identify clear, direct human harm. We've seen humans put at risk in the past, but now we're seeing direct human harm, and the disruption of the efforts to try to combat the pandemic globally are just other efforts to put humans at risk in the name of either nation state interests or cybercrime. I guess the silver lining to all of that, and I know we'll explore this some more in our conversation, is this is drawing international attention to the urgency of these issues. And to sort of use a medical metaphor, we're starting to see some hints that antibodies are beginning to develop in the international system to push back against this. We've seen governments condemning these kinds of attacks on healthcare facilities and healthcare systems and researchers. We've seen communities of legal scholars looking at this issue. We've seen the United Nations begin to discuss this issue. All of that reinforces the basic message, which is the need to have clear rules of the road and expectations for responsible behavior in cyberspace, and to increase international cooperation among governments and the private sector, both to address those issues and to combat cybercrime.